All right, boom, welcome back. I appreciate your time. So like, subscribe, man, pay attention. That's what's most important. So this video is called Thank You, William B. Branch. Again, this video is entitled Thank You, Mr. William B. Branch. And if you are probably wondering who the hell is William B. Branch, that is Professor William B. Branch, and he was a professor at Cornell University around the 90s, if not earlier, and a little after that. Now, another cool kind of correlation with Mr. Branch and, and Cornell University is one of my favorite authors, one of my super favorite authors. I wish I'd have had the pleasure of meeting this guy before he passed, but I can only kind of, you know what I'm saying, like get to know him through his plethora of books, and he's such a talented and brave man, and that is Dr. Yosef Ben Yakanan, who was a professor at Cornell too, and these guys both were under the category of African Studies at Cornell. So, you know, what I love about both of these guys is that they're fearless about their studies, they're fearless about their education, they're fearless about speaking that truth too. And what I really am proud of, most importantly, is this article that I ran into when Professor William B. Branch basically checked New York Times. And specifically, he was checking the editor who had greenlit an article. And you know, for the most part, it's a general kind of checking of the whitewashing and the systematic modifying of history, and also, like I said, specifically whitewashing it, making it mainly giving credit to Europeans or some kind of European derivative descent. So, with that being said, I salute this. I salute William B. Branch. I salute Dr. Ben. I salute Dr. Henry Clark. I salute Ashra Kwesi and the many more. Like I said, who are fearless in their studies, and they put it all out there, and they've been there. And when I say they've been there, that means they've been to the places they've studied, whether it's Egypt, whether it's Ethiopia, whether it's the place they call the Middle East, whether it's Europe. They've been to all these places, and they have studied, and they have books, and they have facts to prove and back up what they say. So with that being said, with me, a lot of the stuff that I've done not only correlates with some of the stuff that I'm about to read in this article that William B. Branch wrote to the New York Times, specifically to the editor. Not only does a lot of the information that I already have on my channel speak to the information that Professor Branch relates to here and mentions, but like I said, it's something that also clarifies exactly what I've been saying, you know. So with that being said, I'm gonna go ahead and get into this article. So it's called "The History Didn't Begin in Mesopotamia." You see, and before I even go on, you know, there is an inaccurate consensus throughout European historians and Egyptologists, so on and so forth, and they're under the impression that to discredit Africa the same way, you know, all these religions do, the same way all these governments do, and the same way all these history books do, they try to discredit the place they call Africa in regards to origin of life itself and even civilization, from writing to agriculture, you know, to religion. All of it is always discrediting us. And when I say us, I'm talking about Africa, the place they call Africa, and anything that is related to it. And they try their best to separate it by, number one, saying that life didn't begin in Africa, which we all know it did. A lot of people, I mean, a lot of people, but these European kind of influenced historians are trying to basically say that life began in the Tigris and Euphrates, which is basically their version of the white and blue Nile in Africa. And so, obviously, that's not true. We all know that. We all know that scientifically, and we also know that when you read these Bibles, because from Israel, all the way to Ethiopia, and a lot of these places are in the place they call Africa. Even the first quote unquote covenant that was that's in the Bible was taken out of Africa, right? Was taken out of Egypt. So either way, all this stuff it's all originating in Africa. Moses, same thing. They said he was finding a reed basket in a river that was floating in the Nile in Africa. And if you know anything about rivers, rivers don't flow out in; they flow in out. That means rivers start inland and then go back to the ocean. So if anything's floating out, I mean, if anything's floating on a river like that, it's floating from deep in Africa as opposed to somewhere else that was out of Africa and somehow ended up in the Nile River. So, like I said, there's so many things that I can mention that brings even their stories and their inaccuracies of their stories back to the place that it actually originated from. Because as much as you try to cover up, you know what I'm saying, like the truth, it will always kind of try to seep itself back up. It's like trying to mix oil and water. It'll just never work. To mix truth and lie, it will always separate itself one way or another. Okay, so like I said, there's folks, and then another example, the Ten Commandments. They say that Moses came down Mount Sinai, which is in Africa. They say that Moses came down with the Ten Commandments, which we all know the Ten Commandments come from the negative confessions, the 144 negative confessions out of Egypt. So, like I said, this I can just keep going. I can keep going to show the connections, even in their fucked up stories. Excuse my French. You can still see the holes. You see what I'm saying? Because you could, like I said, because the truth, it will never blend in with the lie. You can try, but it's like when people try to say that's like trying to shine up a piece of shit. It's still shit. You can shine it up, clean it up, and make it look cool, but it's still shit. It's still shit. You can't hide that. You can try, but it will never work. So, with that being said, this is the truth, and I love how this guy, I love how Professor Branch puts it because, like I said, it correlates to a lot of stuff that I have on my channel uh, from the ancient civilizations who were already in metallurgy, who were already in agriculture from 4,000 to 6,000 BC in West Africa and East Africa. These people were already creating brass sculptures. So it's like agriculture. Imagine, so it's like, how do you think they were tilling the earth? They were using those, they were using brass, you know what I'm saying? They were using metals and shit because they knew what the fuck they were doing. So with that being said, I'm gonna get in this article and just let the man tell y'all himself. Anything and everything in this article, feel free to look it up. And I just wanted to show how brave, and I just wanted to show how cool this presentation was in regards to somebody who is a credible professor and challenging the New York Times as he's supposed to, and letting them know that, what y'all are talking about is bullshit. So here we go. History did not begin in Mesopotamia. So, to the editor, to endangered list in Gulf, add archaeology. This was on the front page, September 16th, I think in 1990, in the New York Times. It asserts that ancient Mesopotamia, which spanned the territory encompassing much of present-day Iraq, produced the first writing and earliest experiments in agriculture. You also credit the valley of the Tigris and the Euphrates rivers in Iraq as the place where historical time began. So, early writing systems have long been known to have developed in the Nile Valley, in India and in other parts of the Southwest Asia before writings codification as cuneiform in Mesopotamia by the early Sumerians, who were designated in later Assyrio-Babylonian inscriptions as the blackheads or black-faced people. What is it? Sir Rawlinson is said to have traced the Sumerians back to Egypt and Ethiopia. Now, what else we got here? Now, as for the agriculture, research by the botanist George P. Murdoch. There's the name right there, so y'all can research this. Agriculture research by the botanist George P. Murdoch and others was reported more than 30 years ago to have constituted persuasive evidence that the Mande peoples, West African Negroes, independently invented a system of agriculture between 6500 and 5000 BC. Pause. And I didn't spoke about the Monday people. I created a PowerPoint presentation in regards to African civilization, ancient African civilizations that correlated with the Black Panther movie. And the Monday people were one of those people who were notoriously known for metallurgy and their brass work. Hence the movie Black Panther. About the same time, crops were first being tilled in the Middle East. Other scholars have since postulated the development of agriculture even earlier, up to 9 to 10,000 BC in East Africa, where it is believed humankind itself first walked the earth. All right. Next, I too was taught in school that history and civilization began at the juncture of the Tigris and the Euphrates, and was taught nothing about the great civilizations Africans and Asians built long before the emergence of Europe, let alone the existence of Europe. I was unaware that Africans and Asians are not minorities, but together with other people of color comprise close to 4/5 of the world's population. And I'm gonna make a point to that after I finish reading. So, with that being said, your misinformation strikes me as prime example of the need for a sweeping curriculum overhaul, such as been proposed for New York State. William B. Branch, Ithaca, New York, October 5th, 1990. They're saying the writer is a professor of African Studies at Cornell. So, boom, tells you right there. Now, like I said, with me, what I started figuring out is when it comes to agriculture, when it comes to writing, and when it comes to the idea of any of this stuff evolving to the place that it is now, what I've come to realize is that every origin has been kind of switched from, like I said earlier, where the white and blue now is where not only life but civilization surrounded itself by. Hence ancient Egypt, hence Kemet, Ethiopia, Nubia, all these places. And then, from the Mondays, all these people. And then I feel like all of it has been kind of somehow resimulated to where the white and blue now to the people who look at it in more of a soup. It's like they look at their definition of history and the way they define history by the way they feel about people as opposed to what really happened. And so I feel like everything has just been kind of diluted. Like the blue and white now is now the Tigris and the Euphrates. You see what I'm saying? Egypt, is now, at least, Egypt, the beginning of civilizations and writing, is turned into the Babylonians, the Mesopotamia, the Sumerians. It's like that's their versions, and it's always like this weird correlation that doesn't make sense, but they try to enforce it. So, like I said, man, all I kind of suggest people to do, and especially when I read these articles, and I read these articles now because I want people to see, number one, where I'm grabbing something, and then number two, they can go look the shit up themselves. Specifically with Professor Branch, I wanted to pull it up because I wanted to show that they are fearless historians and professors out there who challenge the status quo the same way I am, but they're doing it at a bigger level, and I'm on my way there. But like I said, I'm proud of that, and I'm glad to see it. And I just wanted people to take a look at it, and like I said, to me, it feels good. It feels good to know that there's scholars that are way beyond me and the knowledge that I know, and these guys are challenging the status quo. So it just encourages me to keep going. And you never know. One of these days, I'm going to be putting together an article and writing it. You know what I'm saying? So, so that's it, folks. History didn't begin in Mesopotamia, and we can, like I said, we basically talked about the fact that agriculture was basically a normal thing back in 6500 to 5000 BC in East and West Africa. So how the hell is that? How are those people? How are we savages when we're the ones that have been doing this before European and people with that's even with light skin like that even existed? And that, see, for me, that's what really kills me is that the youngest species of human beings are the ones telling the history, and that's why they're getting it wrong is because they weren't around. They have to have things called Egyptologists because though there's nobody that lives in Egypt can tell you what the fuck happened. That means the people that live in Egypt aren't real fucking Egyptians, because even they're going, we'll let y'all come in here and dig and tell us about our history, which doesn't make any fucking sense. So, like I said, it's the youngest species on Earth telling the story, and that's why it's so inaccurate. Is because number one, they're young, and number two, they have an inferiority complex, and they feel that they are superior. So that bleeds into their studies, which obviously leaves their conclusions biased and 99% of the time inaccurate because it's not based on actual study. So it is what it is. Actually, it's not. I'm still going to be doing what I do, and I'm going to keep pushing. Got some more coming your way. History didn't begin in Mesopotamia. Peace.